Well, the final volume of the State Capture Commission's report is to be handed to President Cyril Ramaphosa this afternoon. It was due on Wednesday last week, but was delayed by Commission Chair Chief Justice Raymond Zondo. He says he's needed more time to check the report before handing it over. eNCA reporter Govan Whittles joins us now to discuss this even further. Govan, the much-anticipated report will be handed over to the President around 4 p.m. today. The SABC is among those who are expecting recommendations on what else are we expecting from that report?
Well, one of the most anticipated recommendations, findings, will be on the State Security Agency. And this is not only important because of Arthur Fraser and the allegation that he signed off on 20 million rand to the African News Agency while he was at the State Security Agency as Director General. It also relates to testimony the Zondo Commission heard from the high-level review panel set up to look into allegations that there was a parallel state security structure essentially being run that was loyal to former President Jacob Zuma. It goes to the heart of the allegation that South Africa's spies were captured and used towards nefarious political ends and specifically interfered in the 2017 Nazareth conference of the ANC, and i.e. that they had a hand in picking who the next president of the ANC would be, and then further the country. But that's not all that's coming in today's final installment of the State Capture Report. We're also expecting some findings or recommendations related to the landing of a private aircraft at the Waterkloof Military Air Force Base by members of the Gupta family. Exactly who was responsible then, and perhaps more findings on whether or not the name of former President Jacob Zuma was dropped to allow that plane to land without the former president knowing. We know that the State Capture Commission has already made a lot of findings regarding the web of state capture in South Africa and identified key players who they believe are to blame for facilitating corruption. But today's report is important because it also deals with PRASA, an entity that the government had said it was concerned was looted primarily during the state capture years, and we'll hopefully get some answers as to who was to blame for that.
Now, perhaps we can take a look back at the fourth volume, because it was equally controversial, or many had expected it, and then we saw the fallout just after the release. We had Govan Whittles saying he'll be taking it on review. Quickly, we had Thabang Makwetla having a briefing. I'm sure you were actually one that interviewed Thabang Makwetla straight after. So there was quite a lot happening. Even Zizi Kodwa coming out saying he'll also be taking it on review. Just remind us of some of those explosive findings of that fourth volume.
Indeed, so that is essentially relates to Bosasa, and in that respect, then Deputy Chief Justice, now Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, finding that corruption was the method that Bosasa used to conduct all its business, and the former Gauteng Premier Nomvula Mokonyane also implicated in the findings related to Bosasa and facilitating contracts for them at the Department of Correctional Services. Remember, they also ran the Lindela Repatriation Center in Krugersdorp, and they're accused of essentially carrying the lifestyles of ANC members, not only through cash favors, but also buying things for them at important times. Regarding Govan Whittles and Thabang Makwetla, it's because of the security upgrades that were installed at Govan Whittles' home and offered to Thabang Makwetla. The national chair of the ANC is saying that he'll take the report on review, but Thabang Makwetla is saying that he's not taking it on review. Instead, he wants the Commission's findings to be implemented, i.e. for him to be investigated, and he's confident that that investigation will eventually clear him. This after the Chief Justice said or questioned the judgment of Thabang Makwetla as the Deputy Minister. But then, of course, there are also other findings from Part 4 which relate to Eskom, and these are really important because they set out how the Chief Justice believes that the Gupta family knew they would have to get very close to former President Jacob Zuma to enable the capture of Eskom. And the report in Part 4 identified Brian Molefe, Anoj Singh, and Machela Koko as people who should be investigated with the intention of prosecution, but it also identified the 2014 board of Eskom as being the one responsible for facilitating its collapse and also recommending some investigations in that regard. Important to point out here that the National Prosecuting Authority and the Investigative Directorate have already moved on a number of the findings that have been made by the State Capture commission of inquiry, and a number of people who were implicated, particularly Vincent Smith, implicated in corruption, has already appeared in the Palm Ridge Magistrates Court. So there does appear to be some movement on this, but really is today's report, which is much anticipated because of the standoff between the former Director General of the SSA, Arthur Fraser, and the President, and the assertion by Fraser that the refusal of the Chief Justice to allow him to cross-examine some of the witnesses that implicated him means that the report would not have a full picture. Remember, Muzi Sikakane, who represented Fraser, also appeared at the commission and said that he believed Fraser would complete the picture as to who's responsible for the morass that the country finds itself in. Of course, the then Deputy Chief Justice didn't allow Fraser to come and present his side of the story, saying that he had all the time in the world to come forward with evidence and chose not to. Only when it was time for cross-examination did he make that application. But as he said, the report is expected at 4 p.m. at the Union Buildings, and we'll be there to listen to the President and the Chief Justice once that handover happens.
All right, we'll catch up with you then. That's a reporter, Govan Whittles.